Chen. He's Chairman, CEO and President of Sybase, which is owned by SAP, which is, of course, the world's biggest maker of enterprise management software. Chen, thanks very much indeed for coming along.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Just talked about these trade disputes, I mean, between the U.S. and China, but these two have a symbiotic relationship. They need each other equally.
Absolutely. Everybody needs each other. And unfortunately, you know, given the environment that we have in the U.S. and in China and the political environment as well as the economic environment, we are, you know, we're bound to see these kind of dispute. And it's coming together quite rapidly. But I think there's also a way to diffuse it over time.
Okay, well, the thing is here, it could, almost by accident, by stealth, they could be walking into a trade dispute which could turn into a trade war.
Yes, very much like it could happen. But kind of fortunately, unfortunately, in the United States, you look at, you know, having a trade war or protectionism, or whatever, the policy, you need the Congress to be able to rectify those. And today, I think our Congress are very preoccupied by bipartisan situations, and so. Well,
I'm going to say to you that, I mean, you know, it's also this hectoring is getting louder, the yelling at China from the U.S., China bashing, if you like, because it's election year here as well. So that could skew things.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about election years is, you know, right now a lot of things are very bipartisan. You know, you passing a law through the systems are going to be more difficult than it is before the election is actually done. So I'm going to be more constructive, a little bit more hopeful.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about China. We had, of course, the National People's Congress coming to end, the NPC, yesterday. A lot of talk from Wen Jiabao in that news conference, his yearly news conference, about having political reform as well as economic reform. What did you make of that?
Well, the political reform almost have to happen. I mean, if you look at the China population...
Well, they've resisted it for so long here.
With a matter of pace. You know, the Chinese, you look at it, you know, arguably in the last 30 years, you know, gradually people had more rights and, you know, have, you know, more voices, and you could start seeing scholars writing, you know, really very, very high-end pieces about how the government should do this and should do that. So I think there is an environment that will allow it to happen in a very more peaceful and kind of a, you know, a timing issues, you know, the time itself. You know, the Western world likes things to happen instantaneously, and in this particular case, it's going to take a little longer for it to happen. But because you have to cater to all levels of the society, not just one. So I'm very hopeful that this is going to be real and this is going to be continue evolving, as long as outside party doesn't try to drive it a little bit faster. And economic reform, you know, that goes without saying. I mean, right now, you have a country that almost exclusively in the last 30 years depended on manufacturing sectors, about producing and exporting. Right now, we're about importing and
going up the value chain.
And going up the value chain.
And that's where you come in, don't you, with Sybase? That's the idea anyway, isn't it?
That's the idea.
Yeah, okay. But what are the opportunities which you present yourself there?
Oh, opportunities humongous. I mean, literally. And partly because, you know, a market just buying stuff. You know, now look at the last 30 years. China has just been buying technology, buying know-how. Just the buying stuff, yes, it's interesting. It's a growth market. But the number itself is small. For example, a average size transaction in software in China, you know, rarely it'll be over $10 million US. Rarely.
But I'll put it to you, isn't that because there's a lot of copyright infringement taking place here as well, and that is the issue really at the heart of what's going wrong in that relationship?
Yes, it is, and it will change. So I like to point you to the, you know, Four Little Dragon, which Hong Kong's been one. Right? Singapore and Korea and South Korea and Taiwan. In the beginning of times in the 70s, there were copyright issues everywhere. If you even want to date back further, in the United States, in the late 1800s, there were copyright issues. You know, the Europeans were accusing the Americans copying. So it's a matter of a transition of the history of the
development. So you're saying it's just perfectly normal in any country's economic development?
It is perfectly normal, except that you need to have enforcement to move it a little further along faster. And
that's be weaned off it, don't you, really, and make it indigenous and have innovation coming from, well, the masses?
You get a very key point that I'm always advocating. The IPR issue, the copyright issue, over time, when the nation gets wealthier and more educated and enforcement gets sharper, it will solve itself. One issue that it would not solve is the whole issue of market transparency and openness. And that issue, I think, is going to be much bigger than the IPR issue in the next 10 years.
Okay, well, tell me about how Sybase is doing in China.
Oh, we're doing great. I mean, we're growing double-digit every year, 20+%. We're early into mobile technology and mobile software.
Yeah, are you seeing the biggest growth there at the moment?
Humongous. If you think about 12% of all the billion cell phone numbers are on a smartphone, it's growing double every year. So that itself will tell you, what the opportunities really are. It's huge.
Well, do you have issues when it comes to intellectual property in China?
We do. Not as because ours needs a very sophisticated set of people to really use it. So a more enterprise level. So it's a little bit more immune to the everyday consumer thing. Except one area is we don't always get asked to the same party. We don't see the same deal flow that other people see. So that's, I think, is my number one problem, is that the market transparency that you get invited to the deals.
Okay, what would be your advice if you're a Chinese entrepreneur right now, and are you seeing more of them?
I think they need to organize themselves as a industry group and to really work on the policy to shape that for growth, both for internal demand and the market robustness as well as external exports.
Does it mean that we all have to speak Chinese now?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think if you look at Hong Kong and everybody else, English and Chinese are interchangeable languages.
So it'll remain the lingua franca when it comes to business, but Chinese will give you a competitive advantage, I'm assuming.
If you're here in this market, yes, you probably do.
Thank you very much indeed for that. John Chen from Sybase is the Chief Executive and the President there.